You swore it would be different this time. You left. You healed. You took the time. You told yourself you finally knew what to look for and what to walk away from. And then, without fully understanding how it happened, you found yourself in the same dynamic. Different face, different name, different set of excuses, but the same feeling. That familiar tight anxiety in your chest, that old habit of walking on eggshells, that exhausting cycle of giving everything and receiving just enough to keep you hoping. And the question that comes with it, the one that follows you into the shower, into the car, into the quiet moments before sleep, is the one nobody wants to ask out loud. What is wrong with me? I want to tell you something before we go any further. Nothing is wrong with you, but something is unfinished in you. And that unfinished thing has been quietly running your choices in ways you were never taught to see. Today, we are going to see it clearly, gently, and completely, because the pattern does not repeat because you are broken. It repeats because it is trying to show you something old, something important, something that has been waiting with extraordinary patience for you to finally turn around and look at it directly. Let's begin with the science of why this happens, because this is not a spiritual concept or a metaphor. This is neurobiology. Your brain, from your very earliest experiences, built what researchers call an internal working model. Think of it as an invisible blueprint, a map of what love feels like, what relationships look like, what you should expect when you let someone close. This map was not built from logic. It was built from experience, from the texture of your earliest attachments, from whether the people who cared for you were consistent or unpredictable, warm or withholding, safe or something you had to manage. And here is the critical thing about this internal map. Your brain does not use it as a standard to compare against. It uses it as a homing signal to navigate toward. In other words, your nervous system does not look for what is good. It looks for what is familiar. And familiar, for many people who grew up in environments of emotional inconsistency, feels remarkably like anxiety dressed up as passion. This is why the relationship that feels electric, all-consuming, almost faded from the first moment is so often the one that will eventually hollow you out. Intensity is not intimacy. Recognition is not compatibility. The feeling of finally being seen by someone can mask the much quieter truth that what they actually recognized was your wound. There is a concept in psychology called repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud identified it over 100 years ago, and what he observed was both simple and startling. Human beings have a deep, unconscious drive to repeat painful experiences, not because they enjoy suffering, but because the psyche is always trying to master what it never resolved. Think of it this way. If something painful happened to you as a child, if you learned that love was conditional, that affection had to be earned, that closeness always came with an undercurrent of unpredictability, a part of you did not simply accept that and move on. A part of you got stuck there, waiting for a different ending. And so you unconsciously recreate the conditions of the original wound, not to suffer again, but to try, this time, to get it right. To finally receive the love that was withheld. To finally be chosen without having to earn it. To finally feel safe in the arms of someone who initially feels dangerously like the people who were never safe. The tragedy is that the person who feels most familiar, most like home, is usually the person least equipped to give you what that original wound actually needed. You are not repeating the pattern because you are weak. You are repeating it because your soul has been trying to heal something and it keeps picking up the wrong medicine. Let me tell you about someone who will feel familiar. She had done the work, read the books, sat in the therapy sessions, could explain attachment theory with fluency, had built what looked, from the outside, like a very clear-eyed understanding of exactly what she did not want. And then she met him. He was not obviously toxic. That is what she couldn't understand afterward. He was nothing like the last one. Different personality, different background, different way of carrying himself. But 3 months in, something shifted. Something she couldn't quite name at first. A subtle change in the quality of his attention, a slight withdrawal when she needed something. The feeling that she was always one wrong word away from causing a silence that could last for days. She found herself explaining herself again, monitoring her own needs again, making herself smaller in the specific shape that this particular person seemed to require. And the worst part, the part she lay awake thinking about, was that some part of her had seen it coming. Some quiet internal voice had noticed something early on. Something slightly off in the pattern, and she had overridden it. Not because she was naive, because the familiar discomfort felt like chemistry, because the distance felt like depth, because the low-level anxiety she felt around him felt, in her nervous system, indistinguishable from the feeling she had always been told was love. That is the cruelty of the pattern. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like home. The philosopher and psychologist Carl Jung wrote that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. This is perhaps the most important sentence ever written about why human beings repeat painful patterns, because the force driving you back, again and again, to the same dynamic is not fate. It is not bad luck. It is not some fundamental unlovability written into you at birth. It is the unconscious, that vast, unexamined interior running a program that was written before you were old enough to choose it, in conditions you did not consent to, by experiences that left marks you have not yet finished reading. Making the unconscious conscious is not a dramatic act. It is not a single revelation that changes everything overnight. It is a slow, humble, often uncomfortable process of learning to read yourself, of noticing the pull towards certain people and asking not just do I feel drawn to this person, but why does this particular feeling feel like home? Of learning to distinguish between the warmth of genuine safety and the adrenaline of familiar danger. Rumi wrote, "The moment you accept what troubles you have been given, the door will open. The trouble you have been given is the pattern. And the door it opens when you stop fighting it and start reading it is the door back to yourself. Here is the part that will challenge you most. The pattern does not only live in the people you choose. It lives in what you do once you are inside the relationship. Many people who repeat toxic dynamics do not simply attract unavailable people. They also, and this is crucial, make themselves available to be hurt in very specific ways. They over-explain when silence would protect them. They extend grace past the point where grace is wisdom. They absorb blame that was never theirs because somewhere in their history, absorbing blame was how they kept the peace. They mistake someone's need for them with someone's love for them. These are not character flaws. They are adaptive strategies, behaviors that once made perfect sense in an environment where they were genuinely necessary. The child who learned that keeping a parent calm was their responsibility became the adult who believes that keeping a partner's emotions regulated is their job. The child who learned that expressing needs led to withdrawal became the adult who makes their needs very small and then wonders why their needs are never met. The child who learned that love is something you earn through performance became the adult who performs endlessly and feels unseen despite it. You did not learn these things because you were weak. You learned them because you were surviving. The question now is not how to punish yourself for the patterns you built. The question is how to gently, patiently, one choice at a time, begin to build different ones. 4 practices for breaking the pattern at its roots. The first practice is learning to sit with the discomfort of something new. When you meet someone who is genuinely kind, genuinely consistent, genuinely present, and it feels boring, or suspicious, or somehow not quite right, that feeling is data. Not data about them. Data about your nervous system's calibration. Practice staying. Practice letting steady feel safe instead of dull. Your nervous system needs time to learn that calm is not the absence of love. The second practice is learning to name the pull before you follow it. The next time you feel that specific electricity, that pull towards someone whose warmth comes and goes, whose attention is dazzling, and then suddenly absent, pause before you move toward it. Not to deny the feeling, but to name it. To say to yourself, quietly and without judgment, I recognize this feeling. I know where it comes from. I do not have to follow it. The third practice is reading your body before your story. Your mind will always build a story around why this person is different, why this time is different, why the red flags you are seeing are probably not what they look like. Your body usually knows before your mind admits. A tightness in the chest, a constant low-level vigilance, a feeling of needing to manage something without being able to name what you are managing. Learn to take these signals seriously. They are not anxiety, they are intelligence. The fourth practice is grieving what the pattern was trying to get you. The pattern was never random. It was always trying to get you something specific, the love that felt conditional in your earliest years, the safety that never quite arrived, the feeling of being chosen without having to earn it. Sit with what that original wound needed. Grieve it not as self-pity, but as honest acknowledgement. Because when you grieve what you actually needed, you stop outsourcing the search for it to people who were never going to be able to provide it. Here is what I want you to carry from this. The pattern repeating is not evidence that you are destined for pain. It is evidence that something in you has not yet received what it has been reaching for. And here is the sacred truth beneath that. What it has been reaching for cannot be found in another person. Not ultimately, not completely. It can only be found in the slow, quiet, radical act of giving it to yourself. Of becoming, for yourself, the consistency you kept looking for in others. The safety you kept trying to create in unsafe environments. The unconditional presence you kept trying to earn from people who had not yet learned to give it. The mystic Thomas Merton wrote, There is only one problem on which all my existence depends to discover myself and discovering what I truly am. You are not a person who keeps making bad choices. You are a person who has been trying, with every choice, to heal something real, something that deserved healing. Now you know where it lives. Now the real work and the real freedom can begin. If this names something you have been living with quietly, leave it in the comments. One word if that is all you have. You are not as alone in this as it feels. And if you are ready to keep going, subscribe. There is more here for you. The pattern ends where the awareness begins, and yours just did.